Today's episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott. Now, Joe is not only a fantastic guitar player, he draws on his years of experience as the ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and also at the McNally Smith Music College. Here's a few words from Joe about the course.
If you're tired of wading through hundreds of random guitar videos and just want to become a better player, Fretboard Biology is your answer. Fretboard Biology is a self-paced, college-level program that'll give you the right instruction, in the right amounts, and in the right order. You'll learn the same information I taught to thousands of other guitar players over 30 years of teaching in top music colleges. If you want to make real progress with your guitar playing, then sign up for a free 7-day trial at fretboardbiology.com.
Hi there, you are listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name is Matt Wakeling, and this is the show that I produce in Sydney, Australia, where I speak to leading guitarists and guitar figures from all around the world. Thank you so much for joining me for episode number 227. Now today I am joined by Glyn Evans of Mr. Glyn's Pickups from the west coast of New Zealand. Now Glyn is doing some really cool things in pickup design. His pickups are sent all around the world, and it was a great conversation. He is super insightful and enthusiastic and loves all things guitar. Glyn's got a super dry sense of humour too, which I think you'll enjoy. In fact, Glyn was the one who coined the phrase or the term, or recognised that the Stratocaster was just the transitional model between the Telecaster and the Jazzmaster. And we've used that quote on some earlier episodes. In our iconic series, Gabor, as you know, was pretty happy to hear that comment. All right, let's jump straight into the conversation now. Glyn Evans, aka Mr. Glyn, welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Hi, Matt. Thank you very much for having me here.
Great to have you here. Glyn, I've sort of become aware of you originally through people like Ricky Wood and Gabor and Alex at the super fun, awesome Happy Time Pedal show when they've been talking to you or using some of your stuff. And I know we've engaged a little bit on the online space. So great to have you here. I'm really excited to talk to you about pickups and your background and all sorts of stuff.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. And, you know, I've listened to probably all your podcasts as well.
Blimey.
I know it's going to sound a bit weird here, but yeah, like the Guthrie Govan one, I've had that, a few times. And Michael Schenker.
Yeah, keep on rocking.
What a star. But no, Guthrie Govan in particular, that episode was great. I could listen to him all day.
Yeah, so could I. Absolutely.
You know, there's something about, he's obviously articulate and intelligent. And I was thinking this morning about listening to him, the tone of his voice.
Yeah.
Doesn't he sound like a P90?
Maybe.
You know, I know his voice rather than his playing, but there's a really nice, rounded kind of woody lower mid kind of tone.
This is great. Maybe this is why you make pickups full time. This could be telling that comment.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe so. I need to think about that a bit more. Yeah.
That's cool. Do you know what? Just a short aside. I do hear from guys who build stuff or techs or luthiers who say they listen to this pod and other pods, of course, while they're working. And I'm honoured because you guys are the heroes to me. Like, you put this stuff together out of bits of wire and wood and metal, and people like me get to plug these things in and the noise comes out. It's magic to me. So if
me too.
Yeah.
No, really.
Yeah.
Really. If you stand there and watch, I remember seeing AC/DC playing here in Auckland, watching Angus doing his thing, and thinking, we've got 42 gauge, wire.
Yep.
Here, really, really, really thin wire, and there's, roughly 10,000 turns of that around a little magnet, and it's producing almost no electricity.
Yes.
And then you amplify it a few times, and you got this guy doing this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So from this really cool little bit of physics, you've got rock and roll. I mean, it's him that's making the music, not the guy who made the pickup.
Yeah, sure. That's amazing. I love that. I love the wonder of it. I've read like some of your blogs and heard you interviewed before as well, and you do talk about the physics of it. Let's go back. Did you study physics? I know you studied guitar repair and luthery. I want to talk about that. But yeah, did you ever get stuck into physics?
No, I mean, I left school when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty much self-taught.
Uh-huh.
But then again, having said that, I mean, I'm not comparing myself to Leo Fender in any way, but I mean, Leo Fender was a one-eyed accountant who didn't play guitar, you know?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. It's a story,
So
isn't it? Yeah.
you can teach yourself stuff just because you're into it. So anyway, I always played guitar, and then I was the guy in the guitar shop who sort of thought he knew what he was doing.
Okay.
I'm sure you've met him. And then I ended up deciding to take it seriously. So I went to college in the UK and studied guitar making and repair.
Wow. That's
time.
That's amazing, because down here in Australia, there's probably not so much opportunity to actually formally study this stuff. A lot of people, I guess, informally apprentice to someone who's doing it, that sort of thing. You hear about that. Tell me about studying in the UK. How does that work?
Well, that was a full-time course with a qualification at the end of it. Unfortunately, that course doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
But that was great. And I had access to, the main tutor was a guy called Ted Lee. Mm-hmm. And Ted started repairing guitars in 1958.
Right.
So there's massive amount of knowledge there. So there was Ted Lee and Gordon Whittam, and Gordon was the Gordon part of Gordon Smith Guitars, who are still going in the UK. Yeah. He left a long time ago, but they're still going. It was more like all aspects of repair and making, but there was the pickup making wasn't actually part of it. Okay. But there was an old pickup winder in the cupboard, and I nagged Ted to show me how to use it. And he sort of roughly showed me how to make a PAF and how to make a Strat pickup. And, there you go, mate. Go and sort yourself out from there. And that was in about 1995.
Okay, yep.
So I just got myself lots of wire and made it up. Now, in 1995, of course, the internet existed in theory, but none of us had ever seen it.
Yes, yep.
And there was nothing on there of any use to anyone. So it was all a case of making it up and talking to people who may understand the physics or not, and learning from whatever sources I could find.
Sure. Yeah. It's an exciting time. And mostly when I speak to people who have made a career of it, a lot of them didn't come up through the YouTube generation, just YouTube it, just Google it. So, finding info would have been pretty wild.
See, I don't know if that gives a deeper knowledge or not. Now, you're a music educator, aren't you?
Yeah. Yep.
So I look at that as like the self-taught player. Now, would you say that's, in your opinion, is that a better way to learn something, or not?
That's a really good question. Because
you've got a bias.
Well, maybe a little bit. So, I didn't do a degree in music until my early 30s, until I wanted to get into classroom teaching. So before that, I was giving lots of guitar lessons, self-taught. And the old thing, slow down the record or rewind that cassette over and over and over. And, in some ways, even in the degree, I was working out, not names for what I knew, because I found out the names of the scales and all that kind of stuff, but finding out why it worked, I guess. So a bit of reverse engineering, I suppose, that I think a lot of us do. I think to answer your question, that was a long answer. Yes, I think self-taught, if you stick at it, you'll find some gold you might not have otherwise.
Yeah, but I think you need some better education afterwards as well, though,
yes.
Because I think from teaching guitar repair, what you find is people who are self-taught with a lot of that do have a lot of blind spots.
Sure.
Or will follow quite weird ideas. They can have quite unusual models in their heads of how things work.
Yeah,
and they'll find whatever evidence they can to support that.
Yeah,
rather than debunk it, which is what the evidence is actually doing.
Yeah, sure.
We're going to go down a dangerous rabbit hole here, aren't we?
It's a super interesting one. Can I ask you, whenever I talk to people who've been into guitar teching, repairs, luthery, I like to ask, what are some of the craziest instruments that have turned up? As in, a guitarist with I think following on this idea, a guitarist with no idea of what they're doing thinks, try this modification. I'll try this or that. What's the craziest looking guitar that's turned up for you?
I don't know about craziest looking.
Sorry, more crazy mods that went bad or repair jobs.
What I learned is really that all sound is good, and no matter what. Like, for instance, bloke brings me an Ibanez gem, yeah? Right. Opens the case, it's an Ibanez gem. I have an immediate assumption in my head of what I think he's going to do, what he wants it for.
Yes.
And that taught me was this guy was really into Joe Pass.
Okay.
And that he just liked the neck.
Yep.
But why not?
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty much a PAF in the neck position. It'll do a great Joe Pass. And if you love that neck, well, so... And he was there because he wanted the trem blocked off because it was a nuisance for him. So I think you can't really judge anything like by its appearance. And yes, you get some what would appear in conventionally to be crazy looking guitars or crazy ideas. But actually, these are musicians. You know, I'm sure Leo Fender thought Jimi Hendrix was misusing his gear at first.
Right, yeah.
You know, It's really interesting other people's minds and what they make of something. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the jobs are things like I bought a Telecaster, but what I hear in my head is a Les Paul. Can we make this Tele sound like a Les Paul? And it's like, oh, yeah, you sort of bought the wrong guitar.
Okay.
But, you know, that's fine. And working for lots of people who are from beginner up to, you know, very well-known players. And that's interesting too. The egos are quite interesting. Much bigger egos with the smaller players than the bigger ones.
Yeah, interesting. Whenever I've met, I've got a little theory. Whenever I've met players who are well known or have had a good career, whenever I've talked to them, most of the time they'll be quite humble and they'll be really passionate just about music. They'll talk about their heroes and they'll kind of detour. And I sort of wonder if it's because they've got nothing to prove because they've established their thing. They're confident in who they are and what they've done. Maybe.
You see, my thought is we're all learning to play guitar, right?
Yeah.
No one is ever going to get there.
Yeah.
Nobody ever is.
Yeah.
And the closest I talked to somebody once who reckoned he was 75% the way there.
Okay.
And everyone else who has seen him play would have said 150. You know, it was like, And I think because no one is ever going to get there, and I think the longer people play, the more they realize they realize we're all doing this. We're all in the same struggle. So why should they have more ego?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I think that's a lovely leveler.
Yeah.
That we're all seeking stuff that we can't find.
And the guys that are really great, guys, when I say guys, it's the androgynous term, guys and girls, the ones who are awesome, it's because they recognise that there's something else to work on. There's some other idea, and they keep pushing. And that idea of lifelong learning, which is across all spheres of life, is becoming more recognised, perhaps. Yeah,
and it's supposedly really good for our brains. I mean, it's probably why you and I are so smart.
I'd say so.
Yeah,
I'd say so. Let's put it down to that. So, Glyn, you end up in New Zealand. You're doing your guitar work, but the pickups becomes more of a focus. What was the catalyst for that?
I really like pickups. I really like them.
That's a great.
It was just a really nerdy thing. And we've been rewinding them, and that's how you learn stuff. You know, you see how things were done. And when I started off in the mid-90s, 70s Fender pickups or 70s pickups were just old junk. You know, whereas now they're valuable, sacred things.
Yeah.
So that learning off that stuff, and there was lots of 60s stuff as well. But then I just wound more and more and was making pickups for myself and making the odd pickup for customers from scratch. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking, well, yeah, I don't really want to commute into the city anymore to the workshop. So I started formulating this plan in 2012.
Okay.
and started designing this range of pickups, which took me forever because I'm really, really fussy. And then when lockdown happened, so 3 years ago, almost exactly, I pulled out my workshop in the city and set up here, which is a home workshop. And I live way out of the city. I live on the end of the world, on the West Coast. So, I set up here and started the website, and I already had the core of the range of pickups all designed. So over that period, I built a workshop and we built a website, and haven't looked back.
There you go. Well done. Amazing. When you talk about learning from rewinding a pickup, what does that mean? So when are you going to rewind a pickup? Is it usually for a repair or something like that?
Yeah, right. So, in particular, 70s Fender pickups, they die. So if you have a 70s Strat, for instance, and it starts sounding quiet and thin, then like very, very thin, then there's a fair chance that coil needs rewinding.
Okay.
It's really common. It's really common with those. So to learn from them, I mean, basically you look at even simple things like what insulation have they used on the wire, which you can tell at a glance, of course, because of the color of it. But then I suppose the Strat pickup's a bad example because it's very easy finding information on those. But other pickups that are quite unusual, in a way you're guessing. You know, you're looking at it going, I reckon that's this thickness wire. And quite often you'll wind it and go, no, it can't be that thickness wire because it doesn't fit. I can't fit a reasonable amount on. So sometimes it's a bit of trial and error. But that's how I've always done those, you know. But I have a book that I've written down all the pickups I've repaired, all the different ones, and the spec, and all the experiments I've ever done. So this book is a great reference for me, so that, you know, just to make a note of everything.
That is cool. That book would have some gold in it. I hope. Have you scanned it? Have you got secret copies around the house?
No,
because you guys get volcanoes and earthquakes and things.
Yeah, but you guys get, you know, dangerous animals and floods and fires.
Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, life is insecure, isn't it?
It is exciting. But yeah, that book sounds golden. That's amazing. So what was the first, when you said you were putting the range together, what was the first pickup that you pulled together?
The one that I was using a Telecaster a lot of the time, and it's that what's now called a Cruel Mistress Telecaster set, which is a slightly hotter telly pickup, but still with that telly character, because it's a Telecaster. It should sound like a Telecaster.
Sure.
But I wanted a bit more oomph, so that was one that I did for me. And then from that, the next one. So then I realized with the telly, I want one that's more of a lower powered, more normal telly pickup. So what I did then, because I was repairing a lot of guitars, I knew a lot of players, is I would wind some pickups, make them till I was happy with them, and then give them to a pro player as a test pilot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I followed that way of doing it now through all my pickups. Pretty much all of them is there's a test pilot.
Right.
Only one test pilot.
Okay.
Because if you involve 3 people in the process, you haven't got a chance of ever getting a conclusion.
I guess you've got to find some common language, and if you keep spreading it around, people speaking the language, it's going to get murky.
Yeah, language is very hard because all our language is visual. So when I get people contacting me saying, I'm after a pickup that makes this and that sound, what I need a tone reference is, you know, send me a link to bits of songs or what have you that you like the sound of. Because you cannot just use, like, I can describe something to you. Well, let's say brown, right?
Yeah, brown sound.
Right, brown. Are we talking OU812 or are we talking Van Halen 1?
Yeah, right.
Because that's a different sound.
Absolutely.
So, the whole thing's almost impossible.
Yeah, there's lots of lots of cork sniffing language in some ways. Musical top end. What does that actually mean? I don't know. Maybe something different for you or me or Fred down the street. Those sorts of things. I guess you got to work that out.
And you never know if the other person has quite understood the term you've used.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And the more you try, I mean, some people are good at it, and some people are just making words up.
Sure. Okay.
But then you can actually making words up is quite valid for describing mid-range. You can make up if it sounds a bit ning or if it goes ngong.
Okay. Yeah.
You can hear the different parts of the mid-range.
Sure.
So you can make some words up, but you feel like a fool doing it.
But yeah, you hear that. You hear like a vocal mid-range or a vowel sounds. I've heard.
Yeah.
I've seen that word used sometimes to describe some pickups. Hey, I've got your range of pickups here. I'd like to talk about a few. One, it's not on your website yet, but you've just started talking about it online. Very exciting is the Pandora, I think, or Pandora's box.
Pandora.
The Pandora. Yeah. Now, this is a Tele Bridge pickup. Can you talk us through that? It looks really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of that was actually solving a problem. What I see as a problem, which is the three-way switch on Esquires.
Okay, yep.
It's a single pickup guitar. Yeah. One of those three settings is useful, and the other two are nothing you can't do without a tone control, pretty much.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So they just introduce capacitors and what have you. So what it is an idea of coil tapping a single coil pickup. So at full, it is the Cruel Mistress Tele pickup, like I mentioned, and then you can tap off a load of windings and make it into another Tele pickup, which is also going to go on the website soon, which is how do I describe it really? It was based on a 61 Esquire I once befriended and loved, and then you can tap it off again and have what I'm calling gold foil, although it really isn't gold foil. Yeah, it's just it's a thinner sounding sort of Tele sound.
Okay.
But the wiring I'm recommending is a little complicated because if you can wire it so that the volume pot is seen by the pickup as different values, so that there are resistors that can be introduced.
I saw that plan. That's fascinating. Yeah.
yeah. So that the supposed gold foil sound is seeing that pot as a 1 meg pot, which is allowing more top end through, so more sparkle. So that's what that's about. And that's a pickup I had the idea and I designed it and did all the testing for that a year ago. And then thought, this is really complicated. No one's going to want this. So I just sort of stopped and it just sat there in a test guitar. And then I saw some people on Instagram putting, the single pickup thing is quite big. And I thought, I'll just mention it. And there was enough interest for me to go, okay, right, I'll get it together. So that's the web page is just about written, and that's going to go up early next week.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's such a clever thing to make the volume pot see the value differently. I know some people do that, especially like in tellies, to try and brighten the neck pickup, things like that. But for a one pickup, that's genius. I love that idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing new. It's look at the Jazzmaster. With the top switch down, it's using 1 meg pots. With it up, it's using 250K pots.
Okay.
I mean, that's the difference in your sort of bassy sound on the Jazzmaster and the jangly sound.
Yeah.
So, so it's not. There's nothing new. Not since 1958. There's been nothing new.
That's a thing too. That blows my mind. I mean, yeah, but guys like you're finessing these ideas in clever and musical ways to make these tools.
Yeah. And it's fun. It's one of these things. You know what it's like. You get an idea in your head. Oh, I wonder if I could do that.
Yeah.
Then you can't help. Well, I can't help myself.
Yeah. That's why you're the guy making the pickups. That's awesome. Hey,
as well, isn't it?
Just as well. It's worked out okay. Hey, that idea of think of like switching one pickup. A lot of players will split a humbucker or do something like that. I play a lot of HSS Strats. Well, not a lot of them, but I play them a lot, I should say. They're my gigging workhorses. I don't mind splitting a bridge pickup in that way. A lot of people don't dig it, but I find it usable. But your idea is fascinating. Is there any reason why your idea couldn't be used on other pickups, other styles of pickups as well?
Yeah, the difficulty can be where you would ideally have a different gauge wire for each sound.
Yeah.
So you have to pick sounds that will be ideal with that gauge wire. But no, it's not something you can't do. It's just it is slightly limited. Hey, sorry, going back to that wiring thing with a pot with different value. Is that how you have your HSS Strats wired?
No. So I'm not smart enough yet to try that. I did learn to solder a few years ago and thought I was the smartest man alive when I wired a set of pickups and they still worked a couple of days later. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Right.
But that's interesting. So I found I like 500k pots, and I kind of like that even for the single coils. And I kind of dial in the amp and pedals and everything, I guess, around that.
Cool.
What do you do when you've got like a mix set, like, you know, mixing humbuckers and single coils or P90s or what have you? Do you mess around with that sort of thing?
Well, I think you've answered that. You're happy with what you've got. Sweet. Let's don't mess with it.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, what you would conventionally, what you could do is keep your 500k pot, then add a couple of 470k resistors, which are in parallel to the two single coils. Okay. So then the single coils will see that 500 as a 250.
Gotcha.
But you've already told me you're happy. So
yeah.
So, I mean, you can experiment with it if you've got nothing else to do, but I imagine you're a busy man, so why bother? But yeah, that's sort of the basic idea. There's lots online. You can, it's very popular with, if you've got like a humbucker in the neck of a Telecaster or a HSS like yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's lots of things you can muck about with.
Sure. Let's talk about your Filtertron-ish pickups. You call them the Tron, which is a cool name. Kind of ties in with your robot logo and model. What got you into that kind of sound?
The very first time I fell in love with electric guitar was Malcolm Young.
Fantastic.
It was, and I can summarize what that sound is for me by listen to Jailbreak.
Okay.
About the first 4 seconds of it.
Yep.
That's it. And that's when the money I was saving for a motorbike went on a guitar.
Okay.
And I haven't looked back, and that was it. So that sound of a Filtertron just pushing an amp is that's it for me anyway. What about you? What was your first guitar sound? Have you got a first memory of what you fell in love with?
That's a good question. So I've got an older brother, 6 years older. So he was playing a lot of AC/DC, heaps. That's probably the thing I heard the most too, and some Angels and the Radiators. So bands like that in Australia. Yep, Malcolm, that rhythm tone, and Angus, and both guitars together. It was the first time I realised that you didn't have to play exactly the same part. You could have two different parts. So that's different to sound. That's more about arranging and finding parts, I guess. But those things stuck with me early as well. So
yeah, and two different sounds.
Yes,
with it stereo panning. Yeah, two very different sounds there. I love those early albums. Before Highway to Hell. Mm-hmm. That Vander and Young production.
Yeah,
but yeah, you can pan those either side, and it just sounds fantastic. Yes. And then you listen to like Van Halen 1.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? He's all one side.
Yeah.
And the only thing in the other reverb's the other side. Yeah.
Classic.
Isn't that? I bet they had arguments over that.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
But and it sounds great. It's whatever sound is a funny thing, isn't it? Because if there's some guitar sounds you hear, like think of Not Unusual, Tom Jones.
Okay, yep.
There's a horrible thin guitar in that.
Those little licks. Yeah.
But it's perfect.
It is. So, so perfect.
you isolated that on its own, and you'd go, "Oh, I'm never using that for anything."
Yeah.
But it's perfect for that.
Yeah.
So there's no good or bad sound. It's just where you want it, and we all have musical references too. So if I'm making a pickup that isn't a straightforward one, so it's not like a vintage Strat pickup. If you're making something else, then it's kind of hard to say where. I mean, obviously, I've got the same musical references as everybody else.
Yeah. Okay.
So my taste is as good as anyone's. But it's really interesting how you decide. What is a good sound?
Yeah, sure. So when you hear that sound, you love it, and you think, okay, I want to make a pickup based on that idea on the Filtertron. What do you add to that, or how do you put your own personality into that pickup?
Mine have a little teeny bit more oomph in them than the proper vintage ones.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, the first thing to do is because essentially what I'm doing is copying an old pickup with that. So you've got to start with that and then change it. So I had some old early 60s Filtertrons.
Okay.
And one of the things that you see with a lot of copies of them are the magnets are different.
Right.
Because a Filtertron magnet is quarter of an inch thick, so that's 6.3 mil thick, which is twice the thickness of a humbucker magnet, like a PAF magnet. So I get my magnets made for me. So it's not you can't really buy them. Well, I suppose you can off the shelf, but I actually get them manufactured for me specifically for that. So that's a really good place to start.
Interesting.
Like for instance, I've got a lipstick pickup that's going to be in the next couple of months. I'll be making, but that's another one where you hark back to the early ones, and you make the early ones, and then make one the same as that, and see where you go from there, if anywhere. Yeah. Probably just making the bridge and neck slightly different, at least. Right. But that's one where the modern ones have a thinner magnet, like a PAF magnet, stuck in a plastic bobbin, where it was a thicker magnet that was Alnico 6, which is kind of weird, and the winding was directly onto the magnet. So they were quite different. So that's where I'm starting. So I've got some magnets on the way. They're being made for me. So when and then I've actually realized that I've just started making a different winding machine just for that pickup.
Oh, cool.
Just for the mounting of it. And that's just because I had the idea in my head, and I've started now, so I can't stop that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
That's great. What's the longest time you've spent on a pickup? As in refining, working through, being fussy, as you say?
Oh, well, years, really.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Cloud 9 took me, which Gabor's got as a bridge pickup.
Yes. Actually, I heard that the other day. That sounds amazing. That sounds so cool. So it's like
that took a long time.
A hot humbucker.
Yeah. It's in that Gibson 498, Duncan JB sort of world.
Okay.
But I wanted clarity, and I wanted it to stand out.
Yeah.
As well as have aggression and do a Randy Rhodes thing, as well as other stuff. It needs to be like I play in a rock covers band myself, and I wanted a pickup that would just do everything. Because I think changing guitar halfway through a gig when you're just a pub band is a bit naff.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't want to do that. So that took a while. The Attitude humbucker saw a lot of air miles because the test pilot was in Yorkshire.
Okay.
And I'm in New Zealand. So that was a case of send a pickup over to him put it in a guitar, do the trials, make comments, send it back. And that went back and forth and back and forth. And we were within a hair of both of us being really happy. And then COVID happened.
Right.
And it locked down, bang. We couldn't send stuff back and forth.
Yeah, even shipping went bonkers, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was a guy in New Zealand who, at the time, coincidentally, who's a fantastic, amazing player, Gabe Doverston. And he asked me if I made a pickup, and he pretty much described that one.
Okay.
So I went, okay. Yeah, I'll just send you one of these.
What's the difference between the Attitude and the Cloud 9?
The Attitude was originally designed as a 7-string.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So the idea is for it to have a tight bottom, which is, of course, something we all want.
Sure.
And it needed, again, clarity. They've all got clarity, but it needed power. It needed to be quite compressed. I mean, the guys who use that tend to either be extreme metal or fusion.
Okay.
Which is surprisingly similar in their requirements.
Sure.
So it wanted to have that ringy, sustainy thing. Brown with a hint of purple, and here we go. I'm making up language for stuff, aren't I? but it's got a bit more compression than slightly less dynamic than that Cloud 9 would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think compression's quite handy for those guys. I mean, they've got heaps anyway with all that gain. But
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Hey, tell me about the Clearview pickup. That looks really interesting. So it's as I read it, it's a humbucker, but it behaves like a single coil. What's the story?
It's more, yeah, it's for people that don't like humbuckers. So it doesn't have that lower mid push that people who like humbuckers love, but not everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much a clean humbucker. So it's humbucking,
yeah,
but it's not like a Strat. It's not like a single coil to play. It isn't quite as, it's more, the dynamics are more like a humbucker than a single coil. So it hasn't got a particularly like a spanky Strat thing,
right? Or
it's not quite as dynamic like humbuckers aren't.
Yeah.
The guy who does the demos, who is well worth looking at, Andy Mara, in fact, both guys have done demos for that one. I chose those guys because that's what that pickup does really well.
Okay.
You know, if you're into dirtier sounds, it's not going to push your amp as hard. It hasn't got that lower mid thing. Great for effects. Great if you're using lots of modulation.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's quite different. That's quite a different one.
Yeah, that stood out. So it's a humbucker for people who don't like humbuckers. What if you like single coils, but you want something a bit bigger? Does it fit into that category? Or
no, humbucker size P90 I'd go for.
Okay.
Because you still got the lower mid, you still got those mid-present mids.
Right.
But you've also got, it's a single coil, so you've got some of that attack and that responsiveness. Mm-hmm. That's been really popular, actually. My Black Sand humbucker size P90.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I originally made that just as a neck P90, thinking humbuckers can be a bit mushy in the neck. I'll design a humbucker size P90 just to do that. And the bridge pickup, I thought, well, I might as well make it a set. But actually, it's gone off and had its own life. It surprised me quite a lot, that one. It was the sort of it was the ugly child really in the litter, but it's gone off to do great stuff. Yeah,
cool. So that's the bridge pickup you mean, and then having a set.
Well, both of them as a set.
Yeah,
because it's great for all sorts of things. You know, it's got a bit of a high end aggression if you want to play punk, or it's got some fullness for jazz or everything in between. Cool. I like P90s.
Yeah, they're fun. Absolutely.
Are you a P90 fan at all?
I need to be. I've played a few P90 guitars and I've always liked them. So, for example, what was those Les Pauls? Sort of early 90s they came out with the that's funny. I think I call it the Gem series or something, or Gem Colors. I don't know. Les Paul. I always get on better with those with P90s. Or mini humbuckers, because they're kind of a little bit brighter as well. That's going to be fun. Which I see you make some of those too.
Yeah. I make two flavors of mini humbucker, and there will soon be a Firebird as well.
Okay.
Which is very different again. I know it's roughly looks the same in silhouette, but apart from that, it's very different.
So who wants a mini humbucker? If say like a PAF kind of sound is your idea of what a humbucker sounds like, or what you're familiar with, who's grabbing a mini humbucker?
Yeah, it's. I mean, they're, like you said, they're cleaner. They've got less bottom end. Mm-hmm. There's a lot. It's not just replacement for existing guitars. A lot of what I do is selling to people who are putting together guitars.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's a huge thing these days. You know, you were telling me earlier about your parts casters.
Yep, that's me.
So, yeah. So there's people doing that, people making bodies and that. There's a few Australian makers who use my pickups. So, you know, stuff like having a Firebird neck pickup, I thought, well, that's quite a cool thing, you know. And P90s as well. People often put a P90 in because all the cool kids are playing P90s, man.
That's right.
Get with the cool kids, dude.
I think I might need to.
They're great. I've been gigging with a P90 recently, and just I love it.
That's cool. This episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott, ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and the McNally Smith College of Music. I was one of the beta testers for the course and can say as a music educator, I was really impressed by the logical sequence of learning. The course has also been endorsed by players such as Brett Garsed and Greg Koch. For more details, check out the links in our show notes. I love that you're out gigging as well. What's your so what's your band? You say you do rock covers?
Yeah, it's kind of rock-based covers. It's pretty much this side of the year 2000 mainly.
Okay.
I mean, we'll do the odd older one, but we'll do like, you know, a punk version of Mamma Mia or you know, we'll do a couple of 80s cheesy ones.
Nice.
Which would be like mid-second set cheese platter of, you know, a few 80s ones. But it's the perfect way to test a pickup. I mean, I test them here through different amps, through different pedals and all that, and then I go and get them next to a drummer.
Yeah, perfect. That's the thing, isn't it? In context, like the Tom Jones thing, like in context is everything.
Yeah.
I love it.
Because if you're not next to a drummer, then preferably more than one drummer and more than one bass player. If you don't do that, I don't see how you know.
Yeah.
And then usually, especially the lower powered stuff, which isn't quite my world, they'll go off to other people for testing. Okay. Although there's one at the moment, there's a pickup specifically for Doom.
Okay.
So it's down, and I've just got into it. It's so cool. I have just discovered something. It's been around for 25 years and I haven't noticed.
Right.
But yeah, there's a guy who's got one of those, my sort of prototype to try out. And we'll see how that goes. And if he doesn't like it, brilliant. You can, you know, if we can tweak it and keep tweaking and keep tweaking.
Yeah, cool. Good times. Your range is super broad, which is amazing. I guess it's been a long time coming, but you know, launching 2020-ish, you've got a lot of different pickups, a lot of different flavors, and I see on your site too, which I think is awesome. Like you invite questions, so like collaboration for players looking for a certain tweak or something on a standard recipe. Yeah,
to an extent. There are some pickups are really, really forgiving. Like a PAF,
mm-hmm.
You can under or overwind that either way, and it sounds great.
Okay.
Still, you know, whereas something like the Cloud 9 you mentioned, that's you go too far either side of that, it's not happy.
Okay.
So you've got to. There are some like a Strat pickup, like a sort of vintagey Strat pickup. You've got heaps. It's very forgiving. You've got heaps of space either side. So some people will say, "Hey, I like a." People come up with quite crazy ideas sometimes. I'm more into recommending what I already do than having somebody else design a pickup, because how many times are we going to wind it till it's perfect?
Yeah.
And you might want one pickup, but I'm actually going to make 6 by the end of it.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a long time. So just by my fussy nature, it's probably not a great thing. And I kind of end up talking some people out of things.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I like the conversations we've been having, like here already, like me saying, you know, does the Clearview, where's it going to sit? If I want something fatter, or if I want this or that, and then you say, check out a P90. I think, well, okay, that description sounds more what's in the head. So,
yeah, and also that humbucker size P90. There's quite a few good demos of that. There's Brett Kingman down in Melbourne.
Yeah, Brett's
done a great.
He's great.
Yeah,
That's cool. But the idea of talking to the guy making the pickup is really cool. Like, obviously, you can't do that with the massive names. You just
Seymour will not answer the phone, will he?
Well, not to me, and that's okay. He's busy. So yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. I like that.
But the thing is that always amuses me is actually it's really cool for me too.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I'm from the same place as all the players are, and I'm also a player.
Yeah.
And for me to talk to the player, it's like we're reenacting something that I read in Guitarist magazine in 1985. About that the rock star talks to the guy and talks to whoever, Charbel or Stuart Grover Jackson, and they put a guitar together but it's like that from both sides. It's really cool for everybody, I think.
That's great.
Because guitars are really cool.
They are. That's bottom line. That's where we are. That's why we're here.
They just?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there are so many different ones, and they're just fantastic pieces of equipment. Yeah, and I'm constantly amazed how cool they are. Every time we have band practice or a gig. Yeah. At a gig in particular, like halfway through the gig when it's going really well and there's people are dancing and you're making a lot of noise and God, this is great.
Absolutely.
Do you play out much?
Yeah, I'm out most weekends. So my teaching gig's like Monday to Friday, but most Saturdays I'm out, some Fridays. So usually once a week, and I do. Last 5 years I've been doing a lot of classic Aussie rock, so particularly Cold Chisel stuff, but some Dragon and AC/DC, all that kind of stuff. So I've gone from like a wedding band kind of gigs, which is massively fun. But just to rock for the last while has been the best, because that was the kickoff point for me as a guitar player. So yeah.
And there's something lovely. Yeah, there's something lovely about stepping on the boost pedal and off you go. It's like, wow.
Man, I still roll up to a gig and it's just at some pub somewhere or a club or whatever, and getting the gear out, set it up. It's like, man, 15-year-old me wanted to do this, and he 51, 52 this year. It's just as fun. So I love hearing the passion you have for it too. Yeah,
it's really cool. And what I've noticed as well, I mean, I just playing covers, but I played in a few other bands where it's not been my sort of music.
Yeah.
But what I've realised is I don't care.
Yeah.
As long as I'm happy with my part.
Yeah.
And everyone else is having a good time, then it's great. I just like being out there doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still enormous fun. I love that. And
isn't that great? Because both of us work full time with guitars.
Yeah.
And we're still really into it.
Yeah. I don't know if it will change. I think it's going to be fun all the way through.
Yeah. Well, I've kind of decided this. I mean, the band I've been in for 20 odd years.
Okay.
And I'm gonna play in this band until I can't stand up anymore, and then I'm gonna play sitting down.
Yeah.
I see no reason to not do it.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah.
Glyn, can I ask you a couple of general sort of pick-up questions?
Yeah.
That said, people really need to check out your website and check out all the demos. There's so much good stuff there. But some general guitar questions. One thing that's come up on the podcast is the gold foil phenomena. We saw Fender release the gold foils, which weren't really gold foils. They were mini humbuckers. We're seeing, and not just them, we're seeing a lot of companies put stuff out with cool foil covers over existing factory pickups or whatever. What is a gold foil, and why is it a big deal?
It's a different magnet is the main thing. I mean, it's actually hard to define what a gold foil. I mean, isn't it a pickup with a piece of gold foil on the top?
Yeah,
but it's. I think for most people, it's a look that they really like. A lot of people haven't tried the old originals. They're quite low powered. They've got plenty of high end, but it's a different magnet.
Okay.
And the magnet is a massive part of the sound and the attack and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But also they vary hugely from repairing old Japanese or old Rowe ones. They're very, very different from each other as well.
Okay.
So that book on I can't remember the guy's name who wrote it, on the Japanese guitar. Have you seen that?
No.
He's like lots and lots of 60s, or that 60s period of the taste goes and all that. He's written a book on those.
Awesome.
And there are pages and pages of pickups in the back of it.
Okay.
And I got that a few years ago when I was still repairing. And about a third of the pickups I'd get in from those sort of guitars, I could identify through his book.
Okay. Wow.
And his book is really comprehensive, so I thought. So it is. There are so many different pickups made then. So, yeah, I don't think there is a definition.
Sure. That's a good answer, though, because that's what it looks like. But that's cool. How about some myths? If I'm looking at a pickup and it's got more ohms on the reading, does that mean it's louder?
Okay, I will ask you a similar question. If I'm driving my car and the revs are higher, does that mean I'm going faster?
No, not necessarily.
You need to know what gear you're in.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going up the hill. It's caning it in second. Yes.
Same thing. We need to know what gauge wire.
Okay.
So the thinner the wire, for the same length of wire, the thinner it is, the higher the ohmage. Mm-hmm. So if I wound you 5,000 turns of AWG 42, which is thicker wire, it would have, or let's say I made you a PAF out of 42 gauge, which is what it's supposed to be, and then I made it out of really, really thin wire, the same turns, we could have almost double the K ohms.
Right.
And yet it would sound way thinner.
Okay.
So you need, it's part of the thing. It's a number that people use because it's quite hard to actually pigeonhole what a pickup's going to do otherwise. Yeah. But if you knew, so if you were comparing Strat pickups and you knew the gauge of wire and you knew everything else was the same, then yes. So it's a yes and no answer to that one.
Yeah. That's good. I often ask pickup guys that question too, because like you said, it is a common thing people think, and it's at least it looks like it's standard idea, but it's, as you're saying, it depends.
You notice if you try and look up the spec of pickups now, it's getting less and less used. Okay. Pickup manufacturers, quite often on their website, they're kind of hiding that information because they're a bit annoyed that people use that as a measurement of power.
Gotcha. Okay. Next Pickups 101 question. What is scatter wound?
Okay, now when you put wire onto a bobbin, if you put each winding very neat and tight right up next to the winding before it, so you're making a really neat tight coil, it sounds muffled. Okay. Which is counterintuitive, because usually you think making it look really neat would be better, but it is not, because any piece of wire with electricity running through it is going to have a field of capacitance around it. Okay, yeah. So if you put another piece of wire right next to it, the capacitance will interfere, and the result is it sounds a bit muffled. Right. It's called leakage capacitance. So what scatter winding is the idea of traversing a bit quicker. So you're separating windings from each other to make a pickup sound more lucent, more open, and give more clarity.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
Good.
3-chord.
Good.
Kid. That's great. Yeah. Okay. So the capacitance, I understand that. So
now what you're talking about is almost teeny amount of electricity. Yeah. But let's say it's a Strat pickup. You are multiplying that teeny amount by 8,000 turns or whatever it's got. So you're multiplying it. So any little teeny thing with a winding makes a massive difference. Like the thickness of insulation makes a big difference.
Yeah. Okay.
It can be almost the same thickness and almost impossible to measure the difference, but you're multiplying it by so much with the turns.
Okay. So does that mean every pickup is scatter wound? Like most people are going to go that way then to avoid the capacitance?
No. There's you can, if you don't necessarily need to scatter wind it, you can just traverse quite quickly.
Oh, okay.
So you're making more of a lattice than a completely random
Gotcha.
scatter.
Yeah, okay. And I imagine the scatter, to me, again, certain amount of ignorance going on here, but that would be harder to replicate. If you love this scatter wound pickup, are you going to scatter it the same way twice?
Which is why people will analyze, the old classic Fender pickups and unwind them and look how many turns per layer and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Now, I'm not in the business of doing that. I don't do replica. I do a PAF type pickup, and I do. You kind of have to. It's the core of what people want. Yeah. But I don't do the. I don't care if there's a maple spacer in there or a different. Sorry, it's the dog. The posties here.
Dropping off magnets. That's great.
You can make sure everything else is quiet, but you can't stop the dog.
Yeah.
So I don't do that correct to the nth degree. What I really want is to make really good pickups. I don't really mind if
gotcha.
If other people do that, and that's great.
Yeah.
It's not my thing.
Yeah, gotcha. That's awesome. Hey, maybe last question. It might be a can of worms. In your world of pickups, so putting things like active electronics to the side, but in your world of tweaking fairly traditional ideas, but bending them to your will, which I love that idea. Is there any uncharted territory? Are there any places these pickups can go that's in the back of your head or whatever?
Oh, well, I don't know. There don't seem to be many problems that need solving. I mean, I suppose that Pandora pickup we talked about earlier on with the Esquire thing.
Yeah.
But that's not a new idea.
Uh-huh.
But I think for an Esquire, that works really, really well. You mentioned active. I'm not an amplifier designer, and that's what they are.
Right.
And that's nothing new.
Yeah.
Of course, was it Alembic or whatever, and then Leo Fender and all that. And that was sort of a thing in the 80s. I mean, you'll remember the 80s like I do.
Yep.
It was going to be a thing. Like drum machines were going to replace human beings.
Yeah.
And all that. And we were all going to be playing synths on the moon.
Yeah.
But
and I had active pickups, absolutely.
Oh, there you go. But it didn't quite happen. Mm. And I think there's a compression thing. Like EMGs, for instance, are great. And I always love playing through EMGs. I become this fantastically enthusiastic, tasteless man of rock. But I don't feel there's a place for me. But no, I think for active, I'd need a. I have talked to a pedal designer about the possibility, but we've never quite gone through there. But I don't know where it's going to go. In fact, in many ways, like guitar design in general, a lot of it has gone backwards in time. I mean, not in quality or anything.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's the same with. You get the effects worlds, where people are very into an early simple fuzz these days. But also, there's meanwhile in the other field, there's people who are really into Kemper, and whatever the new one is, I can't remember now. So there's divergences going on. I don't know. And actually, if I did have any really, really cool ideas in the back of my head, I wouldn't be telling you right now.
Sure, because you're working.
Sorry. Because you're going to tell everybody else, I know.
I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm not telling anyone. The folks listening, that's another story. I can't answer that.
They won't tell anyone either, will they?
They won't. Hey, it is a great time to be alive, though, because, there is that looking back at some old designs, but there's all this cool stuff you can do with them, like your Esquire-style pickup. Like, you can have cool vintage stuff that actually stays in tune or isn't noisy or is reliable on the gig. It's a good time to be a guitar player.
I on that subject, I really feel for Gibson, which I know in itself sounds like a controversial statement, but they they kind of have to make guitars like they did in the 50s.
Sure. Yeah.
They have to make that old stuff. But then they get criticized for not innovating. And then when they innovate, like with the new Flying V or the, then they get knocked down. So they can't win either way.
Yeah, yeah.
And they've always have, like through the 70s, they tried to innovate, and they have done in more recent years, and it doesn't always work.
Yeah,
you know?
that's really interesting.
Is anyone still using robo-tuning 10 years on? I hope not.
Yeah.
But, they try. And I think that's, with a traditional company like that, they can't just pick one or the other without being shot down.
It's hard, isn't it? Absolutely. It's like a classic rock band. You go and see them. Everyone wants to hear the hits. No one really cares about the new stuff. Some people will, but most people want the same old stuff. So yeah, I get you. Yeah, Gibson maybe more than Fender even. Fender seemed to get a little bit more leeway to do stuff.
I do. Yeah, it's true, and I don't know why. Yeah. But you're right. They see Gibson and they want Gibson to play Blister in the Sun every time, and they want them to do the same old. Yeah. But no, you're right. Fender. I think maybe because Fender guitars are more modifiable.
Yeah.
Sure. And people will do HSS and Fender have almost been led by the nose by their punters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because people have stuck different things on their guitars and so they've had to follow. I don't know. I haven't really thought of that difference.
But yeah, interesting. But then there's guys like you. You can do whatever you want with some of these classic designs. Take them out, finesse them, and that's awesome. So that's only a win for pickups and for guitar players, I reckon. That's cool.
Yeah.
So
and isn't it a great world where now we've got the internet, little guys can do stuff like this?
Yeah, amazing.
I'm just a little guy in New Zealand, but I'm selling, sending my pickups off to America and Europe and
fantastic, man.
Lots to Australia, and it's just really cool. And then connecting with people from everywhere. And I think the community is something, and it's a word you hear a lot now, which is fantastic. Yeah, and it is.
Yeah,
I'm in touch with players all over the place, and it's really nice. And there's something we have in common. Like I do a lot on Instagram, and that's a great way of getting to know other players.
Yeah, unreal, fantastic. Well, Glenn, thank you so much for speaking with you. I'm glad we finally met in person. And did this. Exactly what you've said, that whole internet connection, or I've heard you talk to some other people I know. It's been awesome speaking to you. I hope we can do it again. And I'll have to ring you up and talk about some pickups one day for one of these gangsters.
Absolutely. You are clearly into putting guitars together, mate. So you are I see victim written all over you.
Yes. You spotted me. Glyn, I'll leave all your links in the show notes for people to check out. But yeah, people should definitely check out your site and all those videos. And mate, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thanks very much, Matt. And like I said, I have heard. I mean, you're my number one podcast. I'm always really excited when there's a new one out. So keep going, and it's really cool. It's really nice to actually finally meet you.
Thank you, man.
And yeah, really good.
All right, there you go. Glyn Evans on the Guitar Speak podcast. I so enjoyed that. I felt like we had a bit of a kindred spirit on the show today, and I really appreciate Glyn's time. I don't think that's the last we'll hear of Glyn, certainly of his pickups as well. So thanks again to Glyn, and big shout out if you are a luthier or a gear builder or a guitar tech or somewhere, and you are listening to the show, thank you so much. Like I said up the front, it is an honour that whilst you're performing the magic, you tune into this show every now and then. That's very cool for me. I love that. My great thanks to Fretboard Biology. Thanks to Joe and Todd and the whole team there who support the show through the advertising. Please check out the links in the show notes. All right, that's it for me. My name is Matt Wakeling. You've been listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. And in the wise words of legendary shredder Michael Schenker,
keep rocking, keep on rocking.
Keep on rocking indeed.